Minister Pekoske, you and I have spoken at length about concerns raised from the Muslim and Arab American communities and about many of the TSA implemented lists and policies and programs that can lead to additional screenings at the airport. We can both agree that that security for the airline travel is of the utmost importance, and that's something I'm focused on 100%, as I know you are. But there are also multiple documented cases of individuals remaining on these lists for over a decade, even though there is no evidence whatsoever that they pose any sort of threat. So my question for you, sir, is please tell me what steps you're taking to address concerns that these policies disproportionately impact communities and certain communities and have done so for at least 20 years.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for raising the issue and for our conversation last week. And this is something that I really do want to address completely and fully, because I think it's very important for an agency that has security responsibility that directly impacts 2+ million people every single day in the United States to have the trust of that traveling population, to know that the procedures we have and the processes we use are fair, equitable, consider civil rights, liberties, and privacy concerns of every single traveler. I commit to you that I will do everything that I can, which is substantial, to address this issue. You mentioned in your opening statement the designation of a direct report to provide input, and I fully endorse that idea. We do have an Office of Traveler Engagement within TSA that is a direct report to the administrator, but I do want to make sure that we ensure that those lines of communication are robust to the point of, rather than waiting for somebody to come to us, that we have a regular scheduled engagement. The other thing that I promise to do is to visit the communities in the state of Michigan and the state of Minnesota, to introduce myself to those communities and to begin to establish a relationship with them at my level, in addition to the relationships that exist at other levels within the agency. I want people to feel that if they have a question about how TSA processes their security, that we listen carefully, we get the facts that are there, and then make sure when we go back that we aren't unfairly causing additional process to any particular traveler. The other thing, sir, that we discussed that I am already looking at is in our communications with travelers through the TRIP program, through the redress program, I think we can improve what we communicate back to passengers to clearly explain what the letter says and what it means and what it doesn't mean for them. And so, sir, you have my full commitment to address this. I know Commissioner Magnus was up in Michigan just recently. He came back, had a very, very good experience up there, and I look forward to partnering with him and the Secretary to present a DHS team that can begin to address this problem completely.
Well, excellent. Good to hear that. I appreciate your commitment, and we'll look forward to hosting you in Michigan in the near term. Thank you for your willingness to do that. As our nation continues to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, TSA's frontline staff, as you're well aware, continue to work tirelessly to ensure that our system remains safe and secure. However, significant parts of the TSA workforce I think are underpaid relative to other similarly situated federal employees and other agencies, which has impeded TSA's ability to retain the qualified workers that are so essential for us. So my question to you, sir, is I appreciate your support of a proposal in the President's budget to address this longstanding inequity that would provide our frontline TSA staff with an increase in their base pay. But I'd like you to address what is the impact of this compensation and benefit disparities on our frontline TSA workforce, and why do we need this action in order to rectify this situation?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is my #1 priority as the administrator currently, and if confirmed as my administrator going forward, is to fix this pay issue. As you mentioned, our frontline transportation security officers, the uniformed officers that travelers see every time they travel through a security checkpoint, on average, they get paid 30% less than their counterparts in the rest of the federal government. That's fundamentally unfair. It inhibits our ability to recruit and to retain talent. And so I think this is the most important thing facing us that we need to address. As you mentioned, the President included in the FY23 budget request to improve pay across the board in TSA, not above any other federal agency, but equitable with every federal agency. And I just think it's so important that we do that. We have in our screening workforce about a 20% attrition rate, and that's way too high. And when I watch at average levels of experience in our checkpoints go from 5 years to 4 years to 3, that's a security concern as well. So I would appreciate your continued strong support of pay equity. It's really so critically important for the success of TSA going into the future.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Last week, this committee held a hearing to examine the threat to the homeland posed by unmanned aircraft systems, as well as a potential expansion of authorities to counter these UAS threats. Part of the legislation that I'm working on currently with Senator Johnson would provide explicit authorization for the TSA to conduct CUAS activities to protect transportation facilities and assets. Mr. Pekoske, my question to you is, could you explain the UAS threat that airports are currently facing for this committee to fully understand, and why TSA needs these authorities, and you need them now, to maintain safe and secure air travel?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, airports are facing UAS challenges every single day. And just yesterday, we had 3 reports from pilots of sightings of UAS as either they were landing or taking off. 2 or 3 days ago, we had a helicopter that had a collision with a UAS in Pennsylvania. When we conduct our test beds, we have 2 test beds underway, one in Miami and one in Los Angeles that's just beginning. Those test beds show us that the reports we get from pilots that I just mentioned are just the tip of the iceberg of UAS activity in and around airports, because we're testing our detect, track, and identify equipment to get a good picture of what is operating around those airports. We've done a lot of work on this, but there is so much more work to do. As you said, our authorities expire very shortly. They expire in October. If our authorities expire without being renewed or refreshed or enhanced, all of those test bed activities that we currently do and all the coordination work that we currently do will stop. And this is a growing threat to our aviation system, and we need to continue this work apace. And I appreciate your focus and your emphasis on providing direct authority to the agencies. This is something that we need to be able to respond to on an instant, and having those direct authorities will greatly enable that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I had the opportunity to tour a TSA checkpoint at Detroit Metro Airport, and I had the opportunity to see firsthand some cutting-edge technologies that are being employed right now at these checkpoints, as well as all across the country, not just in Detroit. My question for you, Administrator Pekoske, is that one of the technologies I was able to observe was the TSA's credential technology, CAT machine. Could you discuss how the TSA's CAT machine can provide additional security at our airports for the committee?
Yes, sir. The credential authentication technology is a really significant advancement in our capability at the checkpoint. And what that does is it validates the authenticity of a credential. And you can imagine if you're an officer and you have to memorize the markings on 56 different types of driver's licenses just in this country, or the markings on passports from around the world, that's a very, very difficult job to do. This technology does it automatically. So the first thing it does is it verifies the authenticity of the document. The second thing, very, very important for us, for the first time in TSA's history, we're able to do near real-time risk evaluation by passenger as they're standing in front of the officer. So that technology is connected to our secure flight database, and that will tell us what flight the passenger is on, what the passenger status is, whether they're a pre-check passenger, a standard passenger, or a passenger who may require enhanced screening. So that ensures that in real time, rather than 24 hours out, which in the past you could print out a boarding pass for, we can assess it right there on scene. Additionally, in a pandemic, not having to hand your credential over to somebody else was, I think, appreciated by our officers and certainly appreciated by passengers. The next version of this credential authentication technology will include a camera, a very high-fidelity camera that will allow us to do biometric matching. So the camera will take a picture of the person that's standing in front, and will compare the digital image that's on their driver's license or passport and do a digital match, which is highly accurate. So it basically speeds things up. It's better security. It's better for passengers.
I understand that TSA has also been working on a new generation of these CAT machines. CAT 2 sounds like a good name for the next generation. machine that allows for biometric verification of passenger identity using camera and facial matching as part of the process. When can we expect these new Cat 2 machines to become more widely used at airports across the country? And tell me a little bit more about them.
Yeah, thanks, sir. The Cat 2 technology, first and foremost, attaches the camera to the system, so it basically brings the biometric capability in. Additionally, the Cat 2 technology has the ability to read a digital identity. So if you're using a mobile driver's license that's now provisioned on some Apple devices and soon will be on some Android devices, you can use that digital identity in the screening process. The Cat 2 system right now is in the prototype stage. We expect to reach full operating capability somewhat distant into the future because we've just re-baselined this program. So the initial idea behind the CAT program was that it would be just at the largest airports in the country. We've since reassessed that and determined to put it at every single airport in the country. So at the current funding levels, that won't be completed for a good long time. That's why my focus is on getting the capital account of TSA at a level more commensurate with where we see the need to close security gaps, which CAT does.
Great. Thank you, Administrator.